everyone, welcome to another episode of Masters of Commerce. I'm here with my friend Andre Shoumatoff. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How you doing, man?
Good. For people who don't know Andre, Andre's been in kind of the outdoor industry for quite a while here in Salt Lake City. Had a number of different positions. Originally, you were, a while back you were the director of marketing for Flint Digital. You also manage the tech stack for SIA, the Snow Sports Industries of America. You were principal director for Digital Marketing Associates. And then when I met you, when I was working for Backcountry.com and Competitive Cyclist, you had started Park City Bike Demos, which for people who don't know, Park City Bike Demos was a pretty innovative bike shop business. And I'll let you talk to that a little bit. We're going to be talking about the bike industry quite a bit today because that's an industry that's pretty close to Andre and I's hearts.
I got the shirt to prove it.
Yeah,
today.
He's wearing a mountain bike shirt right now. And I've got my Competitive Cyclist water bottle.
/ Scratch
Labs. Yeah.
Yep.
So we are cyclists at heart, so that'll definitely come up quite a bit, I'm sure. So, Andre, why don't you go ahead and give us a little rundown. I don't want to spoil it, and I'll probably hack it up, but tell us a little bit about Park City Bike Demos and how that was like a pretty unique business model for retail and bikes.
Yeah, so basically, I think it was like 2008 is that I truly fell in love with bikes. And then I started my agency, Digital Marketing Associates, I think in 2013, and I just really, really wanted to do something with bikes. Mm-hmm. So somebody came to us with the idea of, well, let's do skis on the run or ski butlers, but for bikes. So rather than having a store, we'll just have a van or two. And so basically I always have been as a hobby, like kind of a car person and fabricator and welder and things like that. Yeah, we
were talking about that before we started recording.
Yeah. I'm building a 24 Hours of Lemons race car right now, which is total sidebar. That's a riot.
We have a lot in common. I'm into cars as well, so we're going to have to try and stay on track.
Yeah, exactly. But so anyways, it was this really cool opportunity, and that guy wanted me to be a partner. So I had lined up financing, etc., and I had done the math, and I said, well, it's actually really difficult to make money strictly on rental. It's also very difficult to make money strictly on sales of bikes. Most bike shops are only like 3%, 4% profitable. So a lot of people don't know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and most outdoor stores are only 3-4%. It's almost like the grocery store model.
And is that because the margin on bikes is so low?
Brutal. Margin on bikes is brutal. The payment terms are really quick, so you have to pay for them in 30, 60, 90 days.
So you have to like buy the inventory.
You have to buy the inventory before, often before it sells.
Yeah.
So you have to have big lines of credit and all these things. It's a very volatile and difficult thing. Mm-hmm. And the joke with bikes is that they cost so much money, yet nobody actually makes money.
Yeah.
Building them, selling them, other than a few major industry players.
Yeah. And for people who aren't super familiar with the cost of bikes, so I just bought a new mountain bike.
Yeah.
And the retail price on it is $7,800.
$7,800.
Which people's jaws drop when you tell them that the price of a mountain bicycle is nearly the price of a pretty decent used car.
Yeah, exactly.
So sorry to interrupt you there, but they seriously are so expensive, and to know that the margin is so low is just like, wow, they're expensive to make.
Yeah, and so I had been doing digital marketing for maybe 8 or 10 years, and for 3 years, like 2010 to 2013, I was working for a company doing like Procter & Gamble and Pampers and Prilosec OTC and Big Pharma. Mm-hmm. And our secret there was we were just really good at Excel. And so, there were all these online tools for digital marketing. What we would do is just export all that data out and mix it, put it all together in Excel. And we could find some really cool shit and calculate like, cost per acquisition, cost per lead, cost per engagement, all these different things, count how many touch points, all these different things. That is still fairly cutting edge. There's some pretty cool tools now, but that was our secret 10 years ago. So I basically took that experience and put it into figuring out how to sell bicycles.
How to make money.
Yeah, and how to make money. Yeah. And I realized that the margins were horrible
related
to that. And so I basically said, well, if you can rent a bike a bunch of times before you sell it, which I kind of stumbled into. A lot of people don't know, but Hertz and Avis and Enterprise are really in the car sales business.
Right, because they rent them out and then they sell the cars.
Yeah, exactly. Every single car they have, they sell.
Yeah.
So every single one.
And that's why you don't see people driving 98 Honda Accords at the rental place.
Exactly. And that's why they're all brand new all the time.
Yeah.
What they do is they buy them in bulk at rental pricing, then they monetize it differently through a bunch of rental, and then they sell it. So, but with us, we said, well, I mean, for me, like I was in Boulder, I forget, a year and a half ago, and I rented a amazing, nearly brand new Toyota Land Cruiser with a couple cosmetic scuffs in it.
Those are surprisingly expensive cars.
Surprisingly, like $78,000. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I kept saying, shoot, I wonder how much this car will be when they sell it. I forget how many miles, but I knew it was new, but getting to that point where they would sell it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, shoot, what if I knew exactly how much this car was before I even got in it to rent it? To buy it before I rented it, and then what if the $600 I spent to rent it for a week could go towards the purchase? So I basically prepaid like my first month or something.
Yeah, because if you know how much the car is when you get in it, you can start wrapping your head around maybe taking it home with you.
Exactly. So that's what we did, and so but Park City Bike first year we started in 2 vans. And what we discovered was the mobile model for bike shops and bikes just doesn't work.
Why is that?
Well, we were in Park City. It's a visitor destination. What we found with us is that people really wanted to be like anchored around a bike shop.
Oh, and like the relationship?
Yeah, the relationship. Oh. And when people are like, staying in their condos and things like that, they basically, they want, it was the bike that was generally driving them to come to Park City to have that experience. So as long as we provided a safe, like, good review, like I can prepay $1,200 to rent 2 or 3 really nice bikes for a week for me and my 2 buddies. Like, we're going to come to Park City instead of going to Yellowstone this summer or whatever it is. So it was, 80% tourists, I'd say, maybe 70% out of that shop.
Yeah.
And if you liked the bike, you could take it home. You could keep your rental credit for up to 6 months to buy a bike, any bike, new or used.
Wow.
So we basically became this high volume, fairly low, margins were pretty good. They were better than industry standard. It ended up being, it was a big experiment.
Yeah.
Ended up being really logistically challenging, and we had to have huge amounts of inventory.
Yeah.
But for 2-3 years, we pulled it off very well.
Yeah.
And then this was, I think, my 6th business that I'd been involved with. This was also by far the hardest. Bike industry, just in general, is very difficult to operate in. It's not very efficient, is kind of what I would say. There's just lots of, like, what would you call it, like energy, financial, employee costs, employee time just lost to the grid of just doing business in the bike industry. And then the turn, all these different factors. So I kind of got my ass handed to me, just being totally transparent in terms of managing cash flow and all these different things that I just literally learned on the job. And but we got up to about $500,000 in sales, or maybe a little bit less than that. And it was profitable pre-debt. That was what was really cool.
Nice.
And it was a bit of a startup. We had raised some money, things like that. And then I ended up selling it kind of as a miracle, but it worked out really well, to the CEO of New Balance.
Yeah, what's his name again?
Rob DiMartini.
That's right.
He was the CEO at the time. And then I was just going to be on 3 or 4 months and kind of show him what I know, and then let him do his thing, because he's managed like 4,000 retailers. Yeah. And then he said, hey, Andre, I got to tell you something. I got a job offer and I took it, and I was like, oh no, like there goes our deal. Yeah,
and he's the new CEO of USA Cycling.
Yeah, he's now a year in as the CEO of USA Cycling, doing awesome things at USA Cycling and really upping the game of that organization.
So I ran it. Sorry, when a guy comes like that comes to you and says, interested in your business. That
Yeah.
must be like, even though it was tough, a little bit reaffirming at least.
Totally, yeah. I had two of those. It was him, and then the other was Ken Gart, who was the founder of Sports Authority.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was Gart Brothers, and and Ken was calling from Colorado, and he's like, "Hey, man, I want to invest or buy your shop," and I'm like, "Why us?" And he's like, "Because you guys are the future of retail," and I was like, "Whoa."
That's
and
big.
for me, like, again, startup guy, my ego like definitely went up a couple
like,
notches.
sweet.
So
Well, he's like,
Yeah.
well, if someone's looking at it from the inside out, they're
Yeah.
like, this guy is increasing the margin on the bikes he's trying to sell.
Yeah.
So like what you were doing was pretty innovative,
Yeah.
and to have that reaffirmed by people who are like so well established in these industries, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so there's something there for
Yeah,
sure.
our big challenge was, I mean, I made 1,002,002 mistakes. There's no way around that. Like, literally 1,000,000 mistakes. But our biggest challenge was just lack of startup capital and managing cash flow.
Gotcha.
So, and the people who told me that, I just straight up didn't listen. So, hindsight's 20/20.
Well,
So,
you
but I'll
live and
never
learn.
make those mistakes again if I'm ever involved in the
Probably
business
learned a
again.
lot though.
A ton. Like,
Yeah.
that was my college education times 2, or my graduate degree or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
You can't really substitute experience for
Yeah.
education for experience in that case.
yeah, and the key, and kind of I think why we're talking is, so one thing about that is we were very heavy online marketing driven, and that had come from all those years of building websites and
Right.
digital marketing. So we were showing up first page for nearly all the searches on our bikes. So it'd be like brand page, e-com player, and then there'd be this one bike shop in Park City, and we had a whole page that Photo John
Yep.
was our content
Schaefer.
guy, John Schaefer.
Yeah.
One of the best people in the world.
Good dude. I worked
Yeah.
with him as well, and
Yeah.
solid guy.
Yeah, and that's, I think, how we know each other. So,
Yeah.
So basically, I basically paid him per page as a consultant to build per web page, bike page that he built. And so he would basically he'd spend a day or two, and we would send a bike to photo. We had pro looking photos that were
Oh, they're
full
awesome.
size banner,
Studio.
studio
Yeah.
quality, and then
Oh, yeah.
these extensive write-ups that were like, what's this bike like, how does it pedal,
Yeah.
like the best content on the internet about
The
these
review
bikes.
was like, people were looking at I remember because
Yeah.
I was looking at one of the what is it, the
Felt.
Felt Decree.
Yeah, felt to create.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and so I saw John riding that bike, and I was like, that is a sweet bike. It had like
Yeah.
the checker patterned carbon fiber
Yeah.
layup, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah,
And so I
exactly.
started like, I don't know anything about this bike.
Yeah, I've never
Guess
even heard
where
of
I ended
Felt.
up?
Yeah,
Park City Bike Demos review.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
wow, these guys are the only ones that have a thorough review on this.
exactly.
And so what you're saying is that a big part of the success with the shop was that you were really good at informing the consumer.
Exactly.
And your digital marketing was pretty on point.
Yeah, so Felt absolutely loved us. So in the beginning, they were like, well, these guys are buying a lot of rental bikes and they're selling them at lower margins, but our average page visit time was 12 minutes.
They
on
read
those
the whole
pages.
thing.
They read the whole thing.
Man.
They watched videos. They read the reviews. And their visits in Egypt and Europe and all over the country. So we basically probably sold hundreds or even thousands of those bikes for other shops.
Dang.
And for other things.
So
But-
could they
yeah.
could they buy them right from you? Like,
Yeah, they
you guys
could.
were selling online, right?
Well, we tried e-com, which was really interesting. And so, I've had some consulting gigs for a couple brands that are selling direct. If you're selling brand.com, like specialized.com or canyon.com or whatever, yeah, people will buy from you all day. But if you're an independent, you have to, before you put your credit card for $4,500, $7,800, whatever it is on a website, like, you really want to do your work. So,
Right.
and this was what I found out from Competitive. My friends at Competitive, at least at the time, was something like 70% of their sales are telephone call assisted.
Right, through
know.
the gearheads.
Exactly, through
Yeah.
the gearheads. And so, and a lot of times they'll just put their card right through them, or they'll come back and put it online, but it requires a whole bunch of interactions.
Yeah, they
You know.
feel better about the purchase having talked to someone about
Yeah,
the
so
bike
we
first.
were shipping bikes and used bikes all around the country, and we were the top dealer in the state for Da Vinci, Felt, Argon, a whole bunch. A lot of people don't know that. Park City Bike Demos, this little rental shop in Park City.
Yeah.
It started in 2 vans. We were the top dealer in the state for nearly all of our bikes in those years. And
nice.
and for again, for me, the issue was just managing cash flow and, employee stuff, all these things that I had to learn on the job.
Well, because you had to buy all these bikes like pretty much up front.
Up front, yeah.
That's
and then put them all together.
Huge cost.
Huge. Yeah,
you probably
massive.
had hundreds of thousands of dollars of bikes just
Hundreds
on the
of
floor.
Thousands. Not even in boxes, because we didn't even get to putting them together.
In the shop.
Yeah, I personally put together, 50 bikes, 60 bikes, maybe.
Holy smokes.
In my life, maybe 100. Like, it's crazy.
Wow. Well, so you're like a pretty qualified mechanic then.
Yeah, I'm a pretty good bike mechanic. Yeah. I'm like know a lot of stuff about a lot of weird things. So.
Nice. Cool. So, Andre, one thing I've been meaning to ask. So, it sounds like you had quite a bit of success, but also some shortcomings with this business. And I wanted to know, it sounds like you said you made your mistakes. But you also had a really innovative company. What is your biggest takeaway? Like, what is the thing you learned, and what would you do differently if you were to do that again?
Right. Yeah. Awesome question. Let's see. I hate to be frankly so honest and personal about it. I think it's a good thing, as I really learned more about myself in the process than, again, any college education and all those other things. And I think there were some blocks in kind of my career progression that if I pay attention, I would really notice that the same factors that affected me at Park City Bike Demos, I'd say, were arguably factors in my career before that, which is really interesting. So basically, and I think they're personal things to an extent, but I think they're good universals. So basically, I'd say the number one and two are listen and surround yourself with good people with good advice that can help you and guide you. And when you become an entrepreneur, you're surrounded with advice and unwanted, unsolicited, etc. But I had a bunch of people who gave me a lot of really good advice that had good experience, and there was a lot of signal to the noise stuff. And then, I would argue my ego. Basically, I had run and done things by gut feel, data informed, but by gut feel. I would kind of gravitate towards finding the data that reinforced my opinion. And so I just went by gut, and my ego was a few notches too high, a whole bunch of things, and where these were personal things, these are things about my personality that, as an entrepreneur, which is a really common thing with entrepreneurs, where you kind of have a chip on your shoulder, or you have something to prove, or whatever it is.
The world, I'm gonna do
fuck
this.
The world, I'm gonna conquer. I'm gonna be the best bike shop in Park City. I'm gonna do this, big bold claims and all these things, which a lot of things we followed through on, but basically I just didn't listen to a bunch of really good advice, and I didn't put the time in to process signal to the noise, and to the list just goes on, but to truly listen and to manage the business, employees better, and just do a better job holistically. We wouldn't have had all those bumps in the road if I had done a better job listening.
Interesting.
So,
I think that's good advice for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, e-commerce, commerce related or not.
Yeah.
Just surround yourself by smart people and
listen
to
to
people
listen
who've
to
been
them.
there.
And trust them to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Don't micromanage. I think I actually did an okay job with that. I put a lot of stuff on a lot of people's plates. I was like, just run with it.
Nice.
They'd ask me 20 questions. I was like, you got it.
Just go for it, man.
Go
That's
for
why
it.
I hired you. Do your job.
Exactly.
So I'm really glad we have you here, because you took a new approach to selling bikes.
Yeah.
You, like you said earlier, you guys became the top dealer for a bunch of these brands. All kind of out of thin air. A lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But you just started it and were really good at it.
Yep.
So we call this the Masters of Commerce. Show.
Yeah.
And you fit that bill, I think.
Well, thanks.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we're talking about bikes specifically.
Yeah.
And so when you said all those brands,
Yeah.
Da Vinci,
Yeah.
Felt, Argon, a
Yeah.
couple of these bike brands that people
Never
may
heard
not
of.
have heard of.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that was kind of your differentiator. Like
Yeah.
you chose brands that you guys could sell that not a lot of other people were selling. So
Right.
if someone was looking for this bike, there's a
found
good
them.
chance it was you guys.
Yeah, and we
selling
found
it.
them online, and then we would bring them to Park City to come to vacation and spend a boatload of money in Park City and lodging and tourism and rafting for the family. Our competitors were SeaWorld and Yellowstone
Whoa.
and all these different places, and we literally, I think while I managed it, we serviced maybe 4,500 or 5,000 people through that shop. Yeah, it was crazy.
That is
Cumulative, year after year.
So you guys weren't just a bike shop; you were like an entertainment entertainment destination.
Yep, and that's why we had to pivot from being in vans. Plus, we needed a place to store. So, we could have made it work with vans and had some warehouse. But I literally turned over every stone of anywhere I could store bicycles in Park City, which has a really limited geographic footprint.
Yeah.
So I was looking at like having to store them like 10 miles in some other town 10 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found this old office space that had been abandoned more or less, the old US ski team building.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of a gnarly space at the time.
Right.
Since then it's been bought and refurbished. And I convinced them to tear out all these offices and let us put a bike shop in there, and that's what we did. Sweet. And so basically it looked like a bike shop, felt like a bike shop, met the needs of people there. We kept the vans going for people who wanted delivery.
Right.
And for 2-3 years, we really focused on that. It was really like a bike storage warehouse in a lot of ways. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And that shop was really cool. You guys had offices upstairs as well.
Yeah. So I had my agency on the second floor and the bike shop on the first.
Yeah. Nice.
So
being a marketing guy, we'll dig into a marketing question here.
Sure.
So especially in the bike industry, I know that a lot of these brands don't sell direct.
Right.
They don't sell online.
Yeah.
There's a number of reasons why.
Yeah.
But why do you think that most of these brands aren't selling direct to consumer?
Yeah, I want to be short-winded and have easy answers, but all of these are tough, complicated questions.
Yeah.
But I'll try to be brief. But basically, the number one reason is why people don't buy cars online. They make their decisions informed by online, but actually putting the credit card in is very rare. So the bike shop, luckily, there's a reason why like bakeries and butchers and all these specialty stores are all long gone. Chainsaw stores and all these, when we were kids, they all were still around, the very last of them,
Yeah.
And now they're all gone. There's only a few stores left, especially, which is ski shops, bike shops, all these things.
Yeah,
and that's because, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's a good.
And that's because that last step on a technical thing that costs a lot of money has to happen in person, and all these different, or preferably happens. There are flagrant violations that draw a lot of attention, such as Canyon bicycles. The largest online seller of bicycles on the planet is this company called Canyon. Not very popular in the U.S.,
Beautiful
but
bikes.
Gorgeous bikes.
Yeah.
They just launched in the U.S. They can't keep up with demand.
No one can.
Yeah, they're very right now, especially.
Yeah.
They're very well marketed. Things like that. But the reason they can't keep up is the virus, of course, because the virus is selling a lot of bikes right now. But basically, but it's that factor, and then it's why people don't buy cars online. Like literally put their credit card in.
And
you go to a dealer, you need to feel it, touch it,
yeah.
and a bike is a personal thing. It needs to fit you. There's all sorts of suspension designs and whatever, So there's this human process that's required.
Yeah, you kind of alluded to that earlier. Yeah. You were talking about how you guys did sell online, but people were more about, they wanted that relationship, and it really does take a human interaction to get them that last mile. Interesting.
Yeah.
So with these brands that aren't selling online, bike companies specifically, I feel like spend a ton of money on marketing.
Yeah. Well, they need to. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got to, because there's a lot of competition, and they have to inform customers. But when they're not selling online, what is the point of doing all this marketing and sending people to their website if they can't sell a bike?
Yeah.
So how do they know if they're doing it right?
They don't.
They don't?
Yeah, they have no idea. So and that's the thing with the bike industry. It's like, what do you call it? Like, build all this stuff, get it out there, and hope it sells.
Pray.
And some years it does, and then they have to manage their manufacturing lead times 2 to 3 years out.
Yeah.
And all these different things. It's a really difficult business for everyone involved.
So they're just kind of guessing. They're like,
they're
we're going to make
guessing.
this rad video.
Yeah, rad video, rad suspension design, new whatever.
We'll pay these riders.
Yeah.
And then, like, someone's like, that's a sweet bike.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the website.
Yeah.
I'm going to read all the specs.
Yeah. Read the reviews on the webs and Pink Bike and all the different news sources and whatever, and hopefully it all comes together to work.
So then they go into a bike shop,
mm-hmm.
and they're looking for the bike.
Yeah.
Maybe it's there, maybe it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they buy it. Good chance they buy something else.
Yeah.
Maybe something on sale.
Yeah, yeah.
So the e-com, we would say, do you think it'd be safe to say that e-commerce is definitely like a pain point for the bike industry? Like, some people are doing it, but for the most part, it's a struggle.
E-com can win and can have successes in the bike industry in terms of selling bicycles.
Yeah.
So for components, etc., total win.
Mm-hmm.
Other than a lot of people still want to know, like, how does this basket fit or whatever accessory. But in terms of actually selling bikes, the best example, and I hate to throw these guys under the bus, but we had a bad experience with them under their previous ownership, was Intense Bicycles. We had ordered like 60 grand in bikes. They had all shown up, and then a month later we read online that they were going consumer direct. Ooh. And their prices on their website were often lower than what we paid for the bikes.
That's messed up.
Cost, yeah.
So that's gonna piss you guys off.
Yeah, and they thought, well, online's the future, and we're gonna sell all these bikes. And what did it do? Forced them into bankruptcy.
Really?
Yeah, it was a complete fall on your face.
Why was that?
Yeah.
How come it failed so poorly, do you think?
Because bikes don't sell online very well.
Okay.
Direct.
Gotcha.
You have to have all those interaction points. Yeah, so you need to have them in stock at the dealer.
Right.
As the last step. Or some delivery mechanism to get them assembled or whatever. And that's why all those van companies like Beeline Bikes and VeloFix and whatever, they were fulfilling orders to get them to the consumer, and that last human step was one aspect, one workaround. You know, and then basically if you could back it all the way out, so you have to have marketing, have to have supply chain in China and Taiwan where the bikes are made, and you have all these factors all have to come in and work together, and everything needs to complement each other, and that's why it's so expensive. And then to dethrone the top guys, Trek, Specialized, and Giant, it's really hard, very expensive, and Specialized has done such an incredible job with making incredible bikes. Killer marketing, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
They sell online.
And that they do sell online now. They're transitioning that way, and a bunch of bike shops are going to lose their accounts and go under. But
so this is a good segue into that because yesterday it was announced that Specialized was now going to be selling their bikes on backcountry.com, which is a big
They're complete
big
bikes,
deal.
right?
Yeah.
So
complete bikes. And a couple other rules changed with that. So apparently before then, retailers could not sell their bikes on their own websites. So like they could only sell them in shop. They couldn't e-tail complete bikes. They can now.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a really interesting pivot.
Yeah.
So now Specialized can pretty much be fully online.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, we're thinking about these relationships with retailers, which are really important to sell a bike.
Right.
So now that they are pretty much fully online, do you think a lot of these dealers are going to be put off by the fact that they're being sold at a place like backcountry.com, maybe cutting them out a little bit?
I really wish I knew more and had some good consumer or insider data, which I just straight up don't have.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
and
just
so
came
just
out
to
yesterday.
and to be honest, I would love. I mean, I can guesstimate. I can guess basically. And I can say that having run a shop that, you know, adding online, it's sort of like doing your taxes. You're like shit, now I have to do online too. You know, and you have to master that. And we would always, when I was building websites for people, or even SIA, we built the website for SIA in 2017, and we said, look, 100% of your communications are happening online now, all these different things. And they said, no, we're working on ski industry stuff. But when 100% of your communications are happening online, you're really an online business.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're selling 100% of your bikes online, you're really an e-com that happens to be selling bikes,
right?
Not the other way around, you know. And so, and that's how you need to think about things. And so basically the issue with that is it adds so much complexity, and that's why companies like Smart E-Tailing, which is a Colorado-based company,
we had that guy in an SAA webinar with Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so he's has a platform that can be plug and play for bike shops for a small monthly fee to get them online. Which totally makes sense. And if the sale doesn't, so there's a big, everyone says e-com, and I've heard from NPD webinars and things like that. They need to be on e-com. And they use that word loosely to mean online and live inventory. And so the sale doesn't need to happen, but the inventory needs to be there. Right. People need to know, do they have this bike in stock or not? Am I going to drive here? Am I going to drive up to, we're in Salt Lake City, like Ogden, like an hour away, 45 minutes, because they happen to have that bike in the color I want, in the size I want. Is it new or used? Like all those different things. So that was the secret at Park City Bike Demos. We had that. We had live recording of what's the quality, what's the price of this bike, how many days has it been used, if it's used, things like that.
Do you think it would be valuable for these retail shops to have access to the brand's inventory, like without having to carry them all on the floor? Because you said a big problem that you guys had was that you had to buy the bikes.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm here, you know, and that's why I love what you guys do. And you guys meet a very valuable and critical role in the outdoor industry, whatever we call it, ecosystem.
Symbiosis.
Yeah, that isn't being met well, in my opinion. And there's great companies doing what you guys do, but it's just not widespread enough. And yes, that is a critical component. I think the one thing is transparency on, is it actually at the store or when will it be there? So
something that might have helped you guys is having insight into the brand's inventory.
Yep.
And that would allow you guys to not have to buy all these bikes and have them there sitting in boxes.
Yeah.
You could instead have one or a couple of the bikes, and someone could be like, yes, I want this bike.
Yeah.
And then without having to own that inventory, you could just get it from the brand.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have to carry all that inventory.
Yeah, so that's a critical component. And yes, if you can plug and play into the brand's inventory and have that on your website as a retailer, huge, massive. Huge advantage.
So we've heard this term endless aisle, and you were talking about how one of the biggest pain points of Park City Bike Demos, you had to carry so much inventory that sometimes, a lot of the time, like either you had too much or you didn't. What I know is with other shops, sometimes they don't have exactly what someone wants.
Yep.
This idea of endless aisle is like connecting retailers to brand inventory.
Yep.
Do you think that would be something that would have been super helpful in the bike industry and in your shop?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a mixed bag because, again, you have to communicate to the consumer. Is it there or can it be ordered? For how much and when will it be there? And a lot of people would order and choose to pick up at our store because we had our tech expertise. We actually built Endless Aisle on our e-com platform for a couple providers.
Cool.
And like UVEX helmets, oddly, which was not...
You said you sold a lot of those.
Yeah, we sold a lot of those ones that were the two-piece ones. And
the removable chin bar.
Yeah, and we were like the few guys in the country that had those, and they were selling like hotcakes. It was crazy. And so that was an awesome one. But a lot of times, well, not with those. Those were such a cult thing that people were ordering in Florida and all over. Yeah. But a lot of times, like we had a guy drive from Colorado just to see one of our felts. Like he wanted that bike. That he drove 8 hours or 10 hours. At it. Yeah, exactly. And So, it has to be both. You have to have both, basically. Yeah. And so basically, you have to maintain the core of what a bike shop is. There's few industries that is that is critical. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of brands will move to short circuit dealers because you're giving away 30%, 40% of your margins, whatever it is, to have the dealer support it. Usually at the end of the day with infrastructure, maybe 50%. Shipping costs and employees to pack and ship and all this stuff, just to ship it one more time to get it to the dealer and then in turn have them sell it. And but with bike, you have to have that infrastructure. Yeah. With other ones, outdoor industry. So outdoor industry kind of cannibalized itself much earlier is kind of how I'd put it. And it's both helpful and a detriment. Right. And I remember I'd go to these webinars where they'd be like, outdoor industry has gone on, in the bike industry, they would say, outdoor industry has gone online. What can we learn from them? As if they were more advanced. F no. Like, like they basically had cannibalized themselves sooner. Yeah. And with bike, luckily we moved slower and more cautiously, and we knew we had to preserve our dealer network and all these factors. And so there's this wall of reality that to sell bikes online is a portion, and that bike shops will always need to exist. So it's the Tesla move where Tesla shut down all their dealers and went online, completely fell on their face, and then they reopened them up.
Yeah. So why do you think Intense failed so miserably at selling online?
They didn't have all the pieces in place. They didn't know about the wall of reality that bikes need to sell in stores. Yeah. They didn't know that their guys in stores who rode Intenses were their biggest advocates. And that you need that person to explain why this one is better than that one and why. Yeah. And in our case, here, go try it yourself. Right. See what you think. And we sold a ton of Intenses that were totally overpriced, in my humble opinion, compared to some other good values and things like that, because people got on them and tried them. And we advocated them, and half of our staff ended up riding them.
Gotcha.
So that's the role for like Experticity, for example. Oh, yeah. Where Experticity says, if the salesperson on the floor knows more about it, they've done some math where if you train your people through Experticity, that your sales might increase like 10, 15%, where it's your number one point of optimization of your whole ecosystem. If you can have your sales floor guys at your retailers trained and if you know a lot about Patagonia, you're going to sell a ton of Patagonia. You know a lot about Intense bicycles, you're going to sell Intense bikes. So again, this is how we sold a ton of felts. Right. I became a felt advocate strictly by reading their website, buying one on eBay in 2013, learning all about their carbon, seeing them in the Tour de France, etc., learning about them in tri. They're huge in triathlon. Everyone in triathlon knows about felt. Oh, yeah. Things like that. And it turned out they made a hell of a mountain bike. And so I got my whole staff hooked. That there were a few years that like almost all of our staff was on felt. Yeah, Schaefer still rides. Schaefer still rides. He's got 2 of them. Yeah, not one, 2 of them. Yeah, and he didn't know anything about them when we started.
Now he's diehard.
Yeah, he's diehard, and
that made me go look at felts, and that's how I found Park City Bike Shops.
Exactly, it's all viral, and that's how it works, and so that's why all these things occupy that role. So online, I am an online proponent. I'm an e-commerce specialist. I'm a digital marketer, but there is no substitute for in the store, period.
Especially for bikes.
So
would you say that confidently that look, you can bike companies go ahead, sell online, but you have to support your dealer network.
If you don't, it's a foolish move. It's like taking a gun and loading it and shooting yourself in the foot.
Because these are the guys who get it the extra mile.
Yeah, exactly.
So sell online as long as you maintain a strong relationship with your dealer network and to have a heyday, like go for it. But you got to keep these guys happy because they're the ones who are selling your bikes in the end.
Yeah, and I wish people had told me this a million times, but there's no silver bullets. There's no shortcuts. There's and a lot of people think the internet is a silver bullet. And if you don't do it right, if you don't build your infrastructure, all that, it's literally shooting yourself in the foot.
So you're a proponent for online sales, but you're also a proponent for these independent shops. You got to do both.
Yeah, well, again, we talked about this earlier. I don't know if it'll make it into the edits or not, but basically, like, there's online inventory, and there's marketing related to the bike, and then there's e-com.
Right.
Those are 3 different things.
Yeah.
And everyone a lot of people, again, historically, I'm going to straight up call out Matt Powell from NPD, who's the head of NPD.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, sorry, Matt. But you use the word e-com interchangeable for the 3, and they're 3 distinct different things. Where you have inventory, that's one factor. Is it at that store? Is it here on the site, etc.? Because they're not going to put their credit card down for e-com. Only a small percentage will. Unless it's accessories and shoes and things like that, where it's more likely. But even shoes, you want to try them on before you get them.
That's true.
You'll only buy them if you know they're good or they'll meet your needs. And then the last is just marketing, like those YouTube videos and the pro athletes and Chatter and Pink Bike and things like that. And that can inform and bring this. So step 1, marketing. Banner ads, video, things out there, news articles. Step 2 is, where is it? Last part is the transaction.
Gotta make it available.
Yeah.
That is a big one as well. Is like, you can't send someone to your website after all this marketing and not be able to direct them where to get it, or like at least confidently.
Exactly.
We see this, like, last mile is where everyone drops off. They know what they want to buy, they can't buy it. It's the same in the music industry.
Yeah.
They see all these influencers playing a certain instrument, and they're searching the internet trying to find it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time along the way, they buy something else. They find something else in an e-store, or they go into a shop and buy something else.
Yeah, because they can't find it because all the guitar shops are closed, and you name it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So everyone has to work together. It's like you got to tie your inventory together with your marketing and be able to sell it in the end. Yeah. And for bikes, it's that relationship is really important.
Yeah.
Whether or not they necessarily buy it from the store or online, maybe it doesn't matter where they get it from, as long as it's your bike. After you spend all that money marketing it, you got to give them the ability to buy it.
So if you're your brand manager or your CEO or whatever at your president at one of these companies, you have to have, 1, you need to understand that perspective. 2 is you have to have a lead marketing and e-com guy who understands that. And then part 3 is there's the human component, which is that person also has to follow through and build a system and have support to also follow through and build that entire channel.
Gotcha.
So it's complex and it's expensive. And 10 years ago, 7 years ago, you could win at Google search, and it was just like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
It's completely 180.
Yeah.
Cost of marketing, effectiveness, signal to the noise of you versus your competitors. It's so expensive.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people, they're not doing the math to like figure out like, am I winning or not? I'm putting all this money into Google. Am I winning? What's it actually doing for me? What's my cost per acquisition, cost per sale, cost per lead, cost per engagement, etc.
Gotcha.
So
interesting. Well, Andre Shoumatoff, tech, marketing, sales, this all in and out. I would say I have a really good grasp on it. If you had to leave listeners with a quick two sentence or so sign off, what's the key takeaway for selling, for commerce? What should people be doing?
Yeah, I mean, not to be a parrot, I'm sure there's something I can think of that isn't what I already said.
Yeah.
But it's not coming to me right now. But I think the conclusion is what I already said, is that there's no silver bullet. You have to have the ecosystem in. You have to value your dealers and your sales network. And if you view e-com or transition, or you even have somebody on staff who overly views it, you have to absolutely inform your consumers on what you make. What makes them better? Good pictures, good content. Why is the such and such product better than this one? Why are you better than your competitors? You have to tell that story. You have to tell it in media. You have to tell it on your own website, etc. But you have to, and because people will still need to go to your dealer to go buy it and know that story. They're going to be informed often before they get there. You know?
Good point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's the marketing component.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, and there is e-com, there are all those factors, but again, there's no silver bullets. And again, I guess the last thing I just said is that you have to understand that if you're one of these people, your staff and your leadership in terms of online marketing has to understand that. And then 3 is they have to follow through and have the support system and human component on top of that,
Gotcha.
you know, to follow through on that as well.
No silver bullet. Everyone has to work together
Yeah.
to have one cohesive commerce
Exactly.
strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Hey man, thanks so much.
Thank
it's
you,
always
Colton,
a pleasure
as
to talk
always.
with you. We're just gonna have to do a bike podcast or a whatever. What is it? Lemon?
Yeah,
the
24
lemon
hours
race.
of lemons.
We'll do a car show too.
A car show.
We'll be the next car talk.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Thank
man.
you so
Thanks
much,
so much
Colton,
for coming,
as
man.
always.